Hello, Brubs. We're back with another poem. This one, Tamar by Robinson Jeffers. Was going to use my first editions, but the font is so small. The book was self-printed by he didn't print it in his own house, but he had it printed at his own expense, and I believe it was 1924. Yes, and then Roan Stallion came out the following year, and they combined it into one large volume. Tamar. 1. A night the half moon was like a dancing girl. No, like a drunkard's last $half, shoved on the polished bar of the eastern hill range. Young Caldwell rode his pony along the sea cliff. When she stopped, spurred. When she trembled, drove the teeth of the little jagged wheels so deep they tasted blood. The mare with 4 slim hooves on a foot of ground pivoted like a top. Jumped from the crumble of sod, went down, caught, slipped. Then the quick frenzy finished, stiffening herself, slid with her drunken rider down the ledges, shot from sheer rock, and broke her life out on the rounded tidal boulders. The night accepted with no show of emotion the little accident. Grave Orion moved northwest from the naked shore. The moon moved to meridian. The slow pulse of the ocean beat. The slow tide came in across the slippery stones. It drowned the dead mare's muzzle and sluggishly felt for the rider. Caldwell's sleepy soul came back from the blind course, curious to know what sea-cold fingers tapped the walls of its deserted ruin. Pain, and faintness, crushing weights, and a vain desire to vomit, and soon again the icy fingers. They had crept over the loose hand and lay in the hair now. He rolled sideways against mountains of weight, and for another half hour lay still. With a gush of liquid noises, the wave covered him, head and all. His body crawled without consciousness, and like a creature with no bones, a sea worm, lifted its face above the sea rack of a stone. Then a white twilight grew about the moon and above the ancient water, the everlasting repetition of the dawn. You shipwrecked horsemen, so many, and still so many, and now for you the last. But when it grew daylight, he grew quite conscious. Broken ends of bone ground on each other among the working fibers, while by half inches he was drawing himself out of the sea rack up to sandy granite, out of the tide's path. Where the thin ledge tailed into flat cliff, he fell asleep. Far seaward, the daylight moon hung like a slip of cloud against the horizon. The tide was ebbing from the dead horse and the black belt of sea growth. Caldwell seemed to have felt her crying beside him, his mother who was dead. He thought if I had a month or two of life yet, I would remember to be decent. Only it's now too late. I'm finished, mother, I'm sorry. After that, he thought only of pain and raging thirst until the sundown reddened the sea, and hands were reaching for him and drawing him up the cliff. His sister Tamar nursed him in the big westward bedroom of the old house on Point Lobos. After fever, a wonderful day of peace and pleasant weakness brought home to his heart the beauty of things. Oh, Tamar, I've thrown away years like rubbish. Listen, Tamar. It would be better for me to be a cripple, sit on the steps and watch the forest grow up the hill, or a new speck of moss on some old rock that takes 10 years of growing, than waste shame in my spirit on Monterey rye whiskey, and worse and worse. I shan't be a cripple tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll walk along the blessed old gray sea and up in the hills and watch the spring come home. Youth is a troublesome but a magical thing. There is a little more to say for it when you've said young bones knit easily. He that fell in December walked in the February fields. His sister Tamar was with him, and his mind ran on her name. But she was saying, we laugh at poor Aunt Stella with her spirit visitors. Lee, something told her truth. Last August you were hunting deer. You had been gone 10 days or 12. We heard her scream at night. I went to the room. She told me she'd seen you lying all bloody on the sea beach by a dead deer, its blood dabbling the black weeds of the ebb. I was up Tassahara way, he answered, far from the sea. We were glad when you rode home safe with the 2 bucks on the pack horse. But listen, she said she watched the stars flying over you in her vision. Orion, she said, and made me look out of her window southward. When I saw the stars they called the scorpion, the red bead with the curling tail. Then it will be in winter, she whispered to me. Orion is winter. Tamar, winter is over, visions are over and vanished. The fields are winking full of poppies. In a week or two, I'll fill your arms with shining irises. The winter sun went under, and all that night there came, roaring from the south, Lee Caldwell. Lay awake and heard the tough old house creak all her timbers. He was miserably lonely and vacant. He put away the boyish jets of wickedness, loves with dark eyes in Monterey, back streets, liquor and all its fellowship. What was left to live for but the farm work? Rain would come and hinder. He heard the cypress trees that seemed to scream in the wind, and felt the ocean pounding granite. His father and Tamar's, the old man, David Caldwell, lay in the eastern chamber when the storm wakened him from the heartless, fugitive slumber of age. He rose and made a light and lighted the lamp, not cold yet. Night and day were nearly equal to him. He had seen too many. He dressed slowly and opened his Bible. In the neighboring rooms, he heard on one side Stella Moreland, his dead wife's sister, quieting his own sister, the idiot Ginny Caldwell, who laughed and chuckled often for half the night long, an old woman with a child's mind and mostly sleepless. In the other chamber, Tamar was moaning, for it seemed that nightmare within the house answered the storm without. To Tamar, it seemed that she was walking by the seaside with her dear brother, who said, "Here's where I fell. A bad girl that I knew in Monterey pushed me over the cliff. You can see blood still on the boulders." Where he vanished to, she could not tell, nor why she was crying. Lee, no, no, dearest brother, no. But she cried vainly. Lee was not there to help her. A wild white horse came out of the wave and trampled her with his hooves. The horror that she had dreaded through her dreaming with mystical foreknowledge. When it wakened her, she, like her father, heard old Ginny chuckling and Stella sighing and soothing her, and the south wind raging around the gables of the house and through the forest of the cypresses. When it rains, it will be quieter, Tamar thought. She slept again. All night, not a drop fell. Old Caldwell from his window saw the cloudy light seep up the sky from the overhanging hilltops. The dawn was dammed behind the hills, but overflowed at last and ran down to the sea. Crunch, crunch.